Hello everyone, very good afternoon. Here we are in Spielberg in the Styrian region of Austria for race 2 of Ferrari Challenge Coppa Shell. Drivers on the grid getting ready then, and the track conditions have been really weird today because heavy rain earlier on today. It had kind of stopped raining, but it's back to raining a little bit now. So very wet conditions, but not as wet as they have been. Spray is going to be an issue for our Coppa Shell drivers, the mix of Shell and Shell&AM drivers to come. 30 minutes of race action from Ferrari Challenge. We're in the third round of our season for 2023, and it is the Spielberg Circuit that awaits our drivers, and we'd like to say welcome to Spielberg with our postcard. And there you can see we're looking down from turn 4 as our backdrop there. It's one of the most scenic backdrops of any European circuits here in Spielberg. Please follow us on @Ferrari Racing, whatever your social media preference. We'd love you to be part of it, part of our family here in Ferrari. Weather, as you can see, air temperature 11 degrees, track temperature 14 degrees. It is drizzling a little bit now. Virtually no wind to speak of. That's the way it looks. And you can see quite a lot of cloud cover indeed, which will impact and affect our drivers. The wet weather tyres on the tyre trolleys certainly in full use today, I would suggest. Down there in the rain and the murk is Ludovica. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to everyone, and welcome back to Austria at Spielberg. Everything is ready for the race 2 of Coppa Shell. Since yesterday it's raining here in this circuit, but the Coppa Shell and all the drivers are already raced in this condition. Obviously the teams choose the wet tires for this race, but all the drivers pay attention at the turn 1 and 3 for the risks of aquaplaning. But now I want to concentrate and let's dive up into our race, our grid, because today from the pole position start Ernst that win the race 1 yesterday. This is for the home race, and is a great return for he after the victory of the trophy in 2021 of Coppa Shell. So let's hear now the expectation and the feeling by Ernst here in Austria for this race. Ernst, good afternoon, and congratulations for your pole position in your home circuit. What do you expect from this race?
For sure it will be a very difficult race, because you see the conditions, it's raining more and less, whatever. But I think we have a good chance. We stay at pole, and I have to be focused, and I know there is not one small mistake possible, otherwise they overtake me, because it's very close altogether. Okay, let's see. Maybe we make a very good result.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Have a good race. And now continue our journey in the grid, and go on the second position of the grid with Willem van der Worm, that he returned in the first line of the grid. Good afternoon, Willem. Congratulations for the start for today. Near you there is Ernst. For him is a home race today. What do you expect, and what is the strategy did you decide with your coach and with your team for this race?
The strategy all depends a little bit how the start goes, but in an ideal world I managed to follow Ernst all the way home, because he knows the track very well. He's quick here. If I can stay with him, hopefully I don't have too much pressure from behind, but you never know. The start is all important.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
So there's...
Sorry. I want to show all the Ferrari lineup in the grid. Are more than 50 Ferrari for today, so will be a very exciting and competitive race today.
Thank you, Ludovica. Then the race, we're being told, is going to start behind the safety car. So single file, they'll be behind the safety car. I suspect the safety car will stay out for a couple of laps. There's confirmation of that the race is going to start behind the safety car. We have Shell drivers and we have Shell&AM drivers, of course. We heard from Ernst Kirchmeier and also Willem van der Vorm. They're P1 and P2 in the Shell drivers. Now, the Shell&AM drivers, it's Kirk Bervold and Motohiko Isazaki. And they will be starting single file. So any opportunity potentially for Willem van der Vorm or indeed for Motohiko Isazaki to be able to get their pole-sitting opponents is somewhat minimized by virtue of the fact that they'll be starting single file behind the safety car. So effectively the race will start the moment the safety car leaves the grid, and what would normally be a formation lap. Clearly, there isn't going to be one of them. This is the Spielberg Circuit. Then Sector 1, as you can see, it's a blast. Once you've done the Niki Lauda turn number 1, it's full chat flat all the way up to turn number 3, and then you begin rolling downhill through turns 4, 5, and 6. Very technical part of the circuit, which continues through turns 7, 8, 9, and 10. Running all the way downhill to the start-finish straight. I say downhill because the elevation change between the bottom of the track and the top of the track is some 63.5 meters. Boy, that is quite a lot. Some of the images from yesterday's racing. Weather conditions altogether very different for today. There we can see we're on board the Christian Kinch car there. He is one of our Shell drivers who's perhaps out of position. He'll be starting from P7, and we will bring you the grid in full once the cars are released then. And Axel Sardigan is another driver that is out of position, that's for sure. Big thumbs up from Axel, the entertainer. He's going from P5 on the grid. So behind the safety car is how the cars will start, single file, and they will head up towards turn number 1, which really is uphill. Television doesn't really quite indicate just how steep that climb is up to turn number 1, and the Niki Lauda turn. A minute away from the race starting then. Ordinarily, that would be a minute before the safety car is released to start the formation lap, but there won't be a formation lap. The race will start as soon as the safety car leaves the grid, and all the cars will file behind the safety car in single file. I predict that the safety car will stay out for a couple of laps, allow the drivers to come acclimatized with the track conditions, and then the safety car will come into the pit lane, and then the race will get underway proper. That's imagine how I think it will go. Of course, I have been proven wrong more than once before. Whether I will today, we wait to see. So the Richard Mills safety car, as you can see, is standing by poised. Within 30 seconds, it will get the race underway. Hold on to everything. This could be pretty exciting, you know. Race 2 for Coppa Shell is on its way. So there we go then, and as you can see, the green lights, the clock starts ticking down immediately. The race has effectively started. So in the lead of the race is going to be Ernst Kirchmeier, and in the lead of the AM race, it's going to be Kirk Bervold. Of course, no overtaking when you are behind the safety car. Here comes the grid in full. Ernst Kirchmeier did a great job in qualifying, put it on pole position. Alongside him, a good qualifying from Willem van der Voort, P2. Then it's Alexander Nussbaumer and Thomas Gosner. They go from P3 and 4. Axel Sardigan and Roger Grols, two drivers that perhaps would like to be further up the order than they are, P5 and 6. And it's Christian Kinch and Fons Skelterma, who had a fantastic tussle yesterday. They're P7 and P8. It's Manuela Gosner and John Dillon, then P9 and P10. Ahead of Ingvar Madsen and Corinna Gosner, P11 and P12. Then we see Eric Chung and Christian Herd-Wieper. Before we get to our AM drivers, which Kirk Beerwald was the quickest of those, going from P1, it's P15 overall, and Motohiko Isasaki alongside him, ahead of Tommy Lindroth and Stefano Marazzi. They go from row 9, P17 and P18. Giuseppe Romelli and Lisa Clark. Lisa Clark looked really quick in qualifying, P19 and P20. It's Josef Schumacher and Martinus Richter, two German drivers together there, P21 and P22, with Roland Hurtner and Pino Frescaro going from P23 and P24, ahead of Paolo Scudieri and Louis Perescoia. And then bringing up the rear for Baron Motorsport, it's going to be Christian Windisberger, and he goes from P27 on the grid. So the race has started then. We are behind the safety car. High time to introduce yet another German into the Ferrari Challenge, and that is my summariser alongside me, Nico Spalek. Never like to see a race start behind the safety car, but safety is the operative word, and it is for the greater good. It will just allow the drivers to become acclimatized to the water and where it is.
Yeah, definitely, and it's much better to start the race behind the safety car than to end it there, and I think race control is doing exactly the right thing, and you can see all the spray. It almost looks like rain going in the wrong direction, namely from the bottom upwards to the sky, and definitely some water, standing water on the track, which gets dissipated by the cars running over it. We expect this to be at least 2 laps behind the safety car, and then the input from the safety car will be instrumental to race control in terms of determining when they will bring the safety car in and get the race going for real.
You've summarized that absolutely perfectly. I guess that's what you're not paid for. So already the clock is ticking down, and sure enough, the safety car begins what we think will be its last lap. So, but that is only conjecture on our part. Depending on what is reported back to race control, they may decide to leave the safety car out for an indetermined number of laps, but my best guess is that the safety car will come in at the end of this lap. As soon as we have notification of that, of course, we will bring that to you as well. We are, of course, live from Spielberg as we look at Daniele Diamato, who is driver coach to Franz Engstler, who's advising Franz Engstler on the situation. There is Willem van der Voort, and as if I knew what I was talking about, the safety car will come in at the end of this lap. So 2 laps behind the safety car. The lights will go out on top of the safety car. That will be the indicator to Ernst Kirchmeier and Willem van der Voort that the race will start when they cross the safety car line on the start-finish straight, once the safety car has peeled off into the pit lane.
Yeah, definitely. And that means the drivers are now going to really get into the preparation phase in terms of getting the tires, getting the brakes up to temperature, which is very difficult in these ambient conditions with only 10 degrees. That really doesn't make it any easier, but that's the challenge that the drivers have now. And obviously, Ernst Kirchmeier will have the benefit of determining when he will go. Everybody else will have to follow the lead of the car in front of them.
You're right. Ernst Kirchmeier will control that to a degree. And there's Giorgio Sonagiotto, who is driver coach, of course, to Manuela Gosner, who's another driver that's out of position in terms of qualifying, going from P9. This is Martinus Richter. And Martinus Richter is further down the order than he would like to be with regards to the AM drivers. So the Shell drivers have got yellow strips across the top of the windscreen. The AM drivers have got black strips across the top of the windscreen. That's how you can identify which category each driver and each car is representing. So you can see that Ernst really is backing them up, Nico, to the point where they're almost running into the back of each other. So slow has he been. Now, it is his right. What has to be remembered is once Ernst accelerates, he cannot then decelerate. He's got to keep that going forward. That's precisely what he's done, but he's built himself a gap from Willem van der Voort and also from Alexander Nussbaumer as we are about to go racing without the safety car. and the lights are extinguished. We have a green flag, and Ernst Kirchmayr is leading for Ferrari Challenge Coppa Shell. Let's go racing. 24.5 minutes, as nearest makes no difference. He's on the clock, and there you can see just how visibility is going to be hampered if you're not one Mr. E. Kirchmayr, because every other driver is kicking spray up from their car onto the windscreen of the car that is following behind. Has everyone made it through turn number 1 okay? I'm not sure that Paolo Scudieri did that, because I can see him dropping down the order on our timing screen. They're running through the King, which is turn number 2, and heading up towards turn number 3. There is Manuel Agostner, and here is Ernst Kirchmayr. He's already on his way to turn number 4 right now with Willem van der Vorm and Alexander Nussbaumer. Then it is Thomas Gostner and Axel Sardigan. So you start rolling downhill now, and it is a real roller coaster here at the Spielberg Circuit. As I said earlier in the introduction to the program, there's some 64 meters elevation change between the start-finish straight and the straight between turns 3 and 4. So every driver appears to be being very, very tentative and cautious to begin with, Nico, and just finding their Pirelli feet, if I may be so bold.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is especially tricky for the likes of Manuel Agostner, von Skeltemer, who will feel they're totally out of position. They would like to get up the road as quickly as possible. But obviously you don't want to throw the race away by going for an early overtake when visibility is compromised and you're not quite sure in terms of the brake power and the grip level. So they really have to hold themselves back in their attempt to get up the road, but equally not risk too much in the early going.
Kirk Beervold and Motohiko Isosaki then are P1 and P2, and there they are in the Coppa Shell&AM race. Motohiko Isosaki then, what a fantastic race he had yesterday, taking his first win of his European season, and he would love to make it double bubble this weekend and be able to take the win today. There's just one small problem with that, and that's getting by Kirk Beervold, who is ahead of him. So diving to the inside there, taking a look at the inside was Motohiko Isosaki, but you've got to be really, really brave to send it on the inside of turn number 1, and I don't think Motohiko was quite close enough to be able to do that in any event. There's Christian Kinch and von Skeltemer. What a fantastic race those two had yesterday. And there is Manuel Agostner in the number 173 car. And as I said earlier, Manuel Agostner is, that's Corinna Gostner, I beg your pardon, Corinna Gostner is perhaps not where she would like to be, having the qualifying session curtailed earlier on today. Manuel Agostner, incidentally, sister, is running in P9 at the moment. So Ernst Kirchmayr, he's put 1.9 seconds between himself and Willem van der Vorm, and it's almost the same between Willem van der Vorm and Alexander Nussbaumer before we get Thomas Gostner, father to those 2 daughters that I was mentioning. And under a bit of pressure now is Axel Sardigan from Roger Grolls. There's the Roger Grolls car, the number 117 machine. All Shell drivers that we're looking at the moment, with Christian Kinch following behind, and there is von Skeltemer. Shark's teeth adorning the 177 car, as has become somewhat legend in the Ferrari Challenge, those very, very sharp teeth on the front of his car. So Kirchmayr from van der Vorm from Nussbaumer, and Roger Grolls is currently P6. The car ahead of him, Axel Sardigan, who is championship leader, is running in P5. Let's get a live gap between the two of them. It's some 7/10. It's a reasonable margin for Axel Sardigan to hold off Roger Grolls. Who's diving to the inside here? It's kind of difficult to see. I think it's Christian Herd-Wieper, I believe, and again through the murk and the mire you try and identify the cars. There's Kirk Beervold, and once again you can see Motohiko Isosaki. It was a bit of a sideways moment there just for Giuseppe Romelli, who was at the start of that particular shot, as we pan our camera around then and follow the cars up towards turn number 3. And here come those AM drivers. Christian Herd-Wieper then and Giuseppe Romelli having a bit of a battle there. And Christian Herd-Wieper and Giuseppe Romelli, I think it was, that I could see there. There is Axel Sardigan and, well, Kirk Beervold continuing to lead Motohiko Isosaki, and Tommy Lindroth, who is P3 in the AMs. It was a very good qualifying from Tommy Lindroth earlier on today. And Tommy is beginning just to try and make some further inroads. He would like to advance himself up the podium potentials if he possibly could. So the Giuseppe Romelli car is being chased down by Roland Hurtner. A similar colour scheme to the Alexander Nussbaumer car. The reason for that is Roland Hurtner and Alexander Nussbaumer are in the same team. As Roger Grols is flashing his lights there, Nico, at Axel Sardigan, trying just to get Axel to lose his concentration just for a millisecond.
Yeah, definitely. And Axel Sardigan has been very, very strong throughout the year. Finds himself further down the order than he would like, and then he's also under attack, which means he can't go up the road and try to attack Thomas Gostner. But he knows he's fighting for the championship, so he has to be smart about this. But certainly he loves chasing much more than being chased. That one's for sure.
And I think Axel will readily admit that he drove with his head yesterday and thought about banking points rather than going very gung-ho in terms of an attack, which could work. Equally, it could not work. And he doesn't want to risk the points haul that he could take. Whoa, 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 very sideways for Thomas Gostner. And that proves just how treacherous and difficult it is here. Whoa! He does manage to get the car round and pointing in the right direction again. Here's John Dillon and Corinna Gostner. And Thomas Gostner now going in the right direction. Now, I think Roger Grols has got the inside line here going into turn number 4. That will be an overtake on Axel Sardigan because he's got the optimum line here. He just got a better exit out of turn 3, and that was enough, I think.
Yeah, and that may have been something in connection with the Thomas Gostner because he was running ahead of those two. So Axel Sardigan gains a position through the Thomas Gostner misfortune and immediately loses it again. So Roger Grols advances himself from P6 to P4, and that means he's just one spot off the podium, and he's got his work cut out to achieve that potentially. He hasn't had it all his own way the last season and a half, but maybe today is the day where he finds the podium once again. Thomas Gostner obviously loses a lot of positions.
Yes, it was a net no gain for Axel Sardigan, wasn't it? Because of Gostner going around and then Roger Grols being able to take advantage of that. There is Roger Grols, there's Axel Sardigan. Behind Axel Sardigan now is Christian Kinch. And von Skeltermar is following not far behind those. So it's P4 for Grols, P5 for Sardigan, P6 for Kinch, and P7 for von Skeltermar. And Christian Kinch is looking quicker, and Willem van der Boom is under pressure now from Alexander Nussbaumer. This is for P2 in the Coppa Shell race. Between these two drivers, Alexander Nussbaumer, of course, it's a home gig for him as he looks to the inside going into turn number 3, but not close enough. Good exit speed from Willem van der Boom denies any opportunity to Alexander Nussbaumer on his home track to be able to go through on Willem van der Boom.
Absolutely, and this battle allows Ernst Kirchmeier to get further up the road 3.5 seconds. Not that he needs any benefit because he's setting fastest lap after fastest lap, so he's really, really stretching his legs. You can see the red car disappearing into the mist and the distance. And that battle, and Willem van der Boom would love to get on terms with Ernst Kirchmeier, but as he said, following Ernst, that would be enough in itself. Absolutely.
So very good thinking by some of these drivers in terms of the strategy that they're going to employ and apply. Pino Frascaro and Paolo Scudieri, you can see here. And Pino Frascaro on the inside and Paolo Scudieri to the outside. Now just lurking behind, lurking is a probably horrible term, as now Paolo Scudieri is going to have the inside line on Pino Frascaro, is Lisa Clark from the USA. And I think this will be job done for Paolo Scudieri as he heads into turn number 4 inside, but he's got to carry the speed as well, and that's where Pino might be able to rescue it, but actually no, Paolo was very brave on taking that turn, and he was confident that the grip that he needed would be afforded to him by his car and of course importantly his tyres.
Indeed, as we just saw on our timing screen, Christian Kinch has overtaken Axel Sardigan, so it's going the wrong way for our championship leader Axel Sardigan, as the Swede Christian Kinch is finding the rein to his liking, advantaging himself, getting up to P5 and trying to chase behind Roger Grols. Maybe we will see a replay of that as it happened through the final few turns of the previous lap or into turn number 1 as Kirk Berwald continues to lead for the AMs over Motohiko Isozaki.
So Willem van der Boom and Alexander Nussbaumer. Now the threat from Alexander Nussbaumer was perhaps a little bit more feisty a couple of laps ago. For the moment, it looks like it's calmed down. Here comes von Skeltermar and Axel Sardigan now. So Axel Sardigan clearly not enjoying these conditions here, because drivers are in and around, and including the von Skeltermaar that we ride on board with now. Christian Kinch has gone by, and just look how Christian Kinch has opened up a several car lengths gap over Axel Sardigan. I really think he is struggling, not necessarily struggling, the car is struggling whether the setup is not perhaps optimized for these really, really damp conditions. Because in fairness, when the cars went to the grid, Nico, it had stopped raining, hadn't it? It was still wet, there's no question about that, but since then the rain has intensified a bit. And you know what it's like when you set up a racing car, says he, sounding like he's an engineer, which I am not, but the setup is always a compromise, Nico, for the conditions, for the different sectors of a circuit, and I just wonder whether the setup for Sardigan's car was favouring a drying track rather than one that has now become absolutely rain-soaked.
That's a very good theory at the very least, and we can see Axel Sardigan now having to defend against von Skeltermaar, the Shark, trying to get on terms with our championship leader Axel Sardigan. As you said, Christian Kinch, he is closing in on Roger Grols for P4. Alexander Nussbaumer pretty close to Willem van der Boom. So those are the battles at the front of the Shell drivers, and we watch them develop. And I understand that we will have found that overtake from Christian Kinch over Axel Sardigan, and there it is for you.
Again, that was bold. Good racing room was left by Axel Sardigan. You could see him trying to rotate the car into that gap, and all of a sudden it was full of the back-to-guard livery to 4-day Challenge Evo of Christian Kinch, so he had to, Axel Sardigan had to dial out of that, but almost immediately, once Christian Kinch had gone by, von Skeltermaar got closer, and he's closer still, Nico. I mean, it must be an absolute nightmare to try and overtake in these conditions, because your visibility is so compromised, and you will see drivers that will look as if they're taking an unorthodox line. It's not necessarily that, it is the fact that they're getting out of the spray so that they can actually see where they're going.
Yeah, absolutely. Christian Kinch, however, he knows where he's going because he just put in the fastest lap of the race, so he is certainly on an upward trajectory. With 12 minutes remaining, he has Roger Grols at his target sides, but as we've said many times, getting on terms is one thing, overtaking is another, and in these conditions, that applies tenfold.
Indeed, we've got a yellow flag at turn 6, Nico, so something has happened at turn 6. Someone has gone off. Perhaps you can have a look at the GPS map. That might indicate what has happened there, and whether it will just be a localized yellow for a few moments, or whether it will become something a little bit more critical. In the meantime, Skeltermaar could not be closer, and now Alexander Nussbaumer is really, really close to Willem van der Boom. This is a fight that's going on for P2 in Shell. There's the reason for that, and I dread to say that with the Corinna Gostner car beached there, we're going to get a safety car, and sure enough, there it is. Now, the 4.5 seconds that Ernst Kirchmayr had built as a lead is going to count for nothing now, because that car's going to have to be rescued before we go back to racing. So, very, very unfortunate for the likes of Ernst Kirchmayr, and also for the likes of Kirk Beervold, although his lead over Motohiko Isosaki was not quite as dramatic as the lead that Kirchmayr has in Shell. So there we have it. Safety car is out. Corinna Gostner in the gravel, and von Skeltermaar looking very, very lively. His driver coach is David Fuminelli, who I understand is with Ludovico right now.
Yes, I want to discover more with David von Skeltermaar's coach. After this qualifying session in this morning, Fons found a little more confidence with this track and with this condition. He is now pushing so hard.
Yeah, exactly. Yesterday in the rain he had a great pace. The quali was a little bit unlucky because I think his pace is top 3 pace. Now he's recovering very well. He was attacking Sardigan, now safety car out, so I think the race could be already good at the end for him. We are already together with the group, so let's push until the end, but he's doing a great job.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Well done, Ludo. Getting hold of David Fuminelli. Always good to talk to David, and he tells it the way it is. You could see in replay there, Corinna Gostner was completely on her own when she went around, and that's why the car is gravel trapped. Right, on board with the Richard Mille safety car then, which leads these cars around now. Ernst Kirchmayr, the most disadvantaged by the safety car, although he looked pretty comfortable, to be honest with you. It's Kirchmayr from Van der Voort from Alexander Nussbaumer. Let's just take a look at some of the statistics here. Thomas Gosner losing a load of places. Well, we know that because he went around, didn't he, going into turn number 3. Martinus Richter has gained 5 places, Nico, and finds himself up into P4. That's noteworthy. Take note, Tommy Lindroth, who's in that final podium place. Martinus Richter might come calling for that.
Indeed, and we've got a similar situation in the Shell, because you said Ernst Kirchmeier, the most disadvantaged. Alexander Nussbaumer may disagree. He had 9.5 seconds over P4, over Roger Grohl.
Yes.
And that P3 is very much under threat come restart. Obviously, first we have to have a restart. 9.5 minutes should easily be enough to recover the car, but it's not going to be many racing laps remaining.
It's a very fair point because, of course, the racing laps are slower because of the conditions. So yes, you're absolutely right. It might end up being one of our famed dashes for cash.
Indeed, and obviously the crews here at the Spielberg Circuit are working as quickly as possible to give us as much as we can. Just as a reference, we've got 1 minute 42.4 was the quickest lap around, and indeed they worked extremely well because, Dave,
the safety car is coming in at the end of this lap. So line up, everybody, hold on tight. We're about to go racing again, and all the cars are going to be bunched up together. And several of my colleagues often say, and I refuse to say it, so I'm not going to, but safety cars can sometimes lead to further race interventions. There you go. I didn't say it, did I?
You avoided it, but obviously everybody is bunched up. However, we know these drivers are very careful. They, I think, will tend, especially in these conditions, to not try something adventurous. But we've been proven wrong, so let's see how this develops. 8 minutes, 18 seconds, the safety car lights are off. It's going to dive into the pit lane. Ernst Kirchmeier once again will determine the start.
Yes, indeed, it is his responsibility. He's gone loud on the, he's gone early on the loud pedal. Look at this. Let's see if he can gap Willem van der Vorm and Alexander Nussbaumer. He's done it because he's gone early, as I suggested, Nico.
And it looks like there was a backmarking car between him and the rest of the pack. And so there was an M driver. And there you can see the red car because Willem van der Vorm is actually P2. And that certainly helped Ernst Kirchmeier. And now Alexander Nussbaumer is going for an attack.
Indeed, that really played into the hands of Alexander Nussbaumer, who goes through on the inside of Willem van der Vorm. So there's a change for P2. Here comes Willem van der Vorm to try and come back. Roger Grohl's under threat from Von Skeltermar. You're absolutely right to pick up on the fact that there was a backmarking car there. Ernst Kirchmeier went very very early. Then I thought he'd let off, but it wasn't. It was a completely different car. We've got a yellow flag at turn 1. Someone has gone around. And all of a sudden, this race is lightened up. And oh my goodness me, that is the number 124 car that has gone around of Kirk Beervold. Now, he was the leader in Coppa Shell&AM, Nico.
Absolutely. That gives Motohiko Isozaki the lead. Martinus Richter, P2, who vaulted Tommy Lindroth, who is back in P3 as he was. But again, there's a safety car, and you said it without saying it, and commentators curse potentially in full force.
Well, look, there's damage to the front of Kirk Beervold's car. You can see that. I hope we get a replay of what happened there. I mean, it's very, very busy on a restart, but Kirk Beervold, who's had a really, really good weekend, well, sadly, it's gone from being really good to not being so good.
Yeah, and I hope it wasn't the backmarking car that came into play, because obviously, and I think it was Christian Windesberger potentially who was running there, and I hope that it wasn't, and Kirk Beervold trying to find the way, and then all of a sudden finding the backmarking car in the way. Obviously, the visibility certainly didn't help, and that backmarking car running a little bit slower is always danger. There's always a danger.
You're absolutely right. Now, if we thought earlier this could be a dash for cash, it becomes ever more prevalent now, doesn't it? Because the time is kicking down, and I think the Kirk Beervold car will be relatively easy to recover. Let's take a look here, Nico. Kirk Beervold, super driver, Superman as well. Not going to be able to tell much, are we? Well,
no, not quite.
It was before the turn, wasn't it? It was on the run uphill where Kirk seemed to be kind of pushed towards the barriers there. You know, in the murk and the mire, it's really difficult for our cameras to pick up exactly what happened there. So there is Fabian Volvent, who is coaching coaching Tommy Lindroth this weekend, and I have to say, coaching him to success, because Tommy is in a podium-paying position at the moment, just where he was yesterday. Wow. All of a sudden, everything has changed. Now, Motohiko Isazaki, Nico, who is now leading the Coppa Shell&AM race, of course, won the race yesterday. Is he going to make it 2 out of 2? He'll fall in love with Spielberg if indeed he does. Martinez Richter has moved up 8 places since the start of the race and now finds himself P2. He'll be fancying victory here. And there is a very disappointed Kirk Beervold who is out of the race. That's such a shame. Been driving really, really well and is out of the race. We suspect through no fault of his own, but that's only conjecture on our part. Giorgio Sonagiotto, he looks after Manuela Gosner, and he's with Ludo now.
Giorgio, what about to the race of Corinna and Thomas?
2 mistakes of the drivers. Unfortunately for Thomas, he touched the stripe, the white stripe on the left of the track, and he lost the rear of the car. And for Corinna was an aquaplaning problem. It's very difficult because it's more tricky in compare of this morning. More water on track, and also in terms of driving and the visibility, it's really difficult. I am in live camera with Manuela. It's very difficult to see something.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ciao.
Thanks, Ludo. Of course, not only coaching Manuela, but also Thomas and Corinna as well as Giorgio Sonagiotto. And he was pretty bold about that, wasn't he? He said 2 driver errors, end of. I am seeing, Nico, on my timing screen, that Kirk Beervold and the incident involving cars number 105 and 124. 124 is Kirk Beervold. That incident in turn number 1 is under investigation. Now, the car number 105, Nico, is now our race leader. That's Motohiko Isazaki. So I just wonder whether Motohiko got to the inside of Kirk Beervold. Kirk tried to turn in, maybe, and there you can see that's confirmed on the screen. But it's the cars that were P1 and P2 in Coppa Shell&AM that are under investigation.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's bears watching. We've got 2 minutes 45 seconds, and that means we may just get 1 more lap because they just started the lap. The last lap behind the safety car was 2:35. So if they can recover the car within the next minute or so, which should be possible, then we would get exactly 1 more lap unless Ernst Kirchmeier can slow everybody enough so much that he doesn't complete the lap in time. That would be a wily move, but I rather think that's not going to happen. So it's going to be interesting. Will we get a racing lap? There is Motohiko Isazaki, who...
Interestingly, there didn't appear, as we looked at Motohiko's car there, didn't appear to be any damage to the side of that. I don't know.
Now, that's certainly going to be something to watch, and probably looks pristine, to be honest.
Okay, well, thankfully, that's why we are in a TV studio and not in the race control room.
Everybody's happy about that, indeed. Certainly the drivers are. Lights on the safety car are still on, so this is really getting close. We don't have indication either way, but it has to come in the next 15 or 20 seconds, because if the safety car doesn't come in at the end of this lap, it's going to be a race that finishes behind the safety car.
Yes, you're right. There's no indication on our message board from race control. No indication on the lights on the safety car. And as you can see, the time is continuing to tick down. And as every centimetre of tarmac goes past, it kind of points itself to the race being finished under the safety car.
Yeah, generally the rule is the safety car has to switch the lights off before the end of Sector 2, and they have entered Sector 3, and therefore, unfortunately, we believe that the safety car will take them around, and because it's academic whether they'll do another lap behind the safety car. There's not going to be an overtaking between now and the end of the race, so Kirk Beervold, very dejected, obviously. Was the leader of the race, still in a good position in the championship, but had so many chances and opportunities to get, and there is the answer already.
So that means that that's an answer we can see on our message board. It will flash up on your screen in a moment. Basically, Motohiko Isazaki is going to get a time penalty of 25 seconds for causing a collision. That will elevate Martinez Richter Tommy Lindroth and Giuseppe Romelli into the podium places because, of course, there's no gaps between the drivers effectively now because we're behind the safety car. There is confirmation of that. So clearly, race control, who have access to even more cameras than we do in broadcast, were able to look at that and deem that, unfortunately, Motohiko Isasaki was deemed to be at fault for the incident that took Kirk Beervold out of the lead of the race. The 25-second time penalty doesn't do anything for Kirk, unfortunately. But it equally doesn't do anything for Motohiko, who is not a malicious driver. I'm sure it was an error.
Of course, and we really didn't see it, so very little thing we can say about that. What we can say about that, 25 seconds behind the safety car is the maximum penalty you can have because everybody's bunched up.
Yes.
If you have a chance to put some gaps between yourself and the others, as we saw with Franz Angster in the Trofeo Pirelli race, who was able to overcome a 10-second penalty and keep his position, no chance he can do anything about those 25 seconds.
For sure.
Because he's just part of the crocodile, which will cross the timing line and the finish line in just a few moments, and it will see Ernst Kirchmeier, who we see from the camera car, which is the Richard Mille safety car, in center shot. He will take his second win in 2 races here in Spielberg, and I think it's his 4th consecutive win on this very circuit, because he also won the last time around.
Your memory is better than mine, but yes, Ernst certainly has a liking for this, it being a home gig for him, and of course, you know, there's nothing nicer, I suspect, than being able to take the victory in the track which is closest to your home.
Absolutely. You can see the safety car light is off, so the safety car will come into the pit lane. Don't be confused by that, but there is no overtaking until the finish line. It just allows Ernst Kirchmeier to take the checkered flag, which he richly deserves. Alexander Nussbaumer, so same 1-2 as yesterday. The 2 Austrians will share the top 2 steps of the podium. Willem van der Worm will join them, Axel starting in P5. Salvages as much as he could probably from today. Christian Kinch lost a position once again because he was ahead of Axel starting at some point. So his P7 maybe not the maximum that he may have hoped for, but it is what it is. And Martinus Richter indeed was in the lead yesterday, didn't finish high up, was far down today and finishes in P1. So it shows you never know what's going to happen, but it's going to happen.
Martinus said to me, you know what, when you gave me advice last time out, Dave, I went and won the race. Now, that's his driver coach. You just saw that, Daniel Mancinelli. He himself a very, very successful racing driver. So now, Martinus, I can't say that I had any influence on your win today because I didn't have lunch with you today. So you can credit your own driver coach for your success. Daniel Mancinelli then looking after Martinus. So there we have it then, Nico. It's never the way we want to see a race finish behind the safety car, but that's the way it is. And, our victors, Ernst Kirchmeier and Martinus Richter. In each of the categories there indeed is Martinus Richter right now. Pretty happy Mertel Motorsport then. And there he is. Oh, if only we had a live link into Martinus, I could talk to him right now, Nico. Is that something you can arrange, Fred? You're good with the production people. Can we just get a live radio link between myself and some of these drivers here? I'd love to do that.
Sorry.
No, okay. I knew you'd be grumpy about it.
Sorry.
And well done, Martinus, in any event. Here's confirmation of the result. Ernst Kirchmeier, Alexander Nussbaumer and Willem van der Worm, the top 3. Ahead of Roger Grols, Axel Sardigan, von Skeltermark, Christian Kinch, then Manuel Agostner, John Dillon and Christian Herd-Wieper. They are the top 10 in Coppa Shell. Then it was Ingvar Madsen and Thomas Goosen. Now the best of the AM drivers, Martinus Richter, Tommy Lindroth, Giuseppe Romelli. Then it was Roland Hurtner, Stefano Morazzi, Josef Schumacher and Paolo Scudieri, Pino Frascaro, Lisa Clark. Now Motohiko Isasaki all the way back down there then after that time penalty had been applied to him. And that means he finishes ahead of Louis Perez-Scroyer. Then Windisberger and, of course, Beervold, we didn't see finish the race. We see Ernst Kirchmeier being congratulated by Franz Freeman, his race engineer, and also Nicolo Schiro, his driver coach, and Ines Ruhl from the Baron Motorsport team, and just about everyone else. There's a queue of people to hug Ernst Kirchmeier. And well done to Ernst. And very, very... Yeah, what a great weekend he has had. There is no question about that. And well done. He's really likable man. And Alexander Nussbaumer equally happy. And there you can see being congratulated by not only Luca Engstler, but also by team boss as well. And here we can see Martinus Richter out of the car. And Daniel Mancinelli, who is his driver coach, is very happy with him indeed. So the P1, 2 and 3 then, and here at the virtual podium for our Shell drivers, Ernst Kirchmeier, Alexander Nussbaumer and Willem van der Vorm. And then for the AM drivers, it's Richter, Lindroth and Ramelli.
And congratulations, you make it double at home. You made a good start and you pushing until the end of this race. How do you feel to be here for the second time in this weekend?
I'm really surprised because a double win at home race is more or less more than you can expect. You know, racing, everything can happen, and it was very difficult conditions yesterday and today, and really I'm so happy about, and the team was so great, and the driver coach Nicolas Schiro helped me a lot. So, and I also made a good job, I would like to say. So I'm also happy with myself.
Okay, and so now it's time to celebrate on the podium.
Thank you so much. Thank you. You're right.
How unusual for Ernst then to say, actually, I'm very happy with myself. He's normally very self-deprecating, it has to be said. We'll be speaking to Martinus Richter in a few moments' time, having heard from Ernst Kirchmeier. But Martinus Richter, of course, victorious in Shell&AM.
Martinus, congratulations for the result and the race for today. This is your second podium in this season and the first in wet condition.
Yeah, I'm really happy that I made it today. Yesterday we had the same conditions, but I couldn't go somehow. And the qualifying in the morning was also very bad, though I started P8. But today I felt completely different, and I was really controlling the car. It was much easier for me, and I'm really happy that I achieved the win in this rain, in these hard conditions.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well done, Martinus Richter. And here we can see the highlights right now. Enjoy without compliments. highlights. Here are the statistics then. Martin Richter up 9 places in Coppa Shell&AM. Christian Herdvipper up 4 places in Coppa Shell, the best progress. Who were the quickest? Well, Thomas Gostner in Coppa Shell, 234 kilometers per hour, 230.5 for Martin Richter. And those just some of the statistics powered by AWS. Follow us on @Ferrari Races if you will. Fastest laps came from Ernst Kirchmeier for the Coppa Shell drivers and for Giuseppe Ramelli for Coppa Shell&AM. We are going to be heading up to the star-studded podium next. So it will be the Coppa Shell podium, first of all, where we will be seeing Ernst Kirchmeier, Alexander Nussbaumer, and Willem van der Vorm, as they will be heading to their respective steps 1, 2, and 3 up there in the, I think the podium here in Spielberg has got a cover over it. It's literally, just I can almost see it from our studio here, but I think they're going to be undercover for that, which they'll be pleased about. Although, of course, if you're on the podium, actually, you kind of probably don't mind what the weather condition is going to do. Now, we were talking about lunch earlier on. Didn't have lunch with Martin Richter. Did have lunch with Tommy Lindroth, who, Nico, he said that he was determined to move up a place. He's done it. It's P2 for Tommy Lindroth. What a weekend he has had, coached by that young lady, Fabienne Volvent.
Yeah, absolutely. He will be thrilled and she will be thrilled and she'll be having much more coaching opportunities coming her way, I'm sure.
Here's Willem van der Vorm then taking P3 in Coppa Shell. Here comes our P2 driver, Alexander Nussbaumer. And on the top step of the podium, it's Ernst Kirchmeier then heading towards the #1 spot on the podium. Trophies are going to be presented by Alessio Rovera, I believe, as Ines Rule, once again from Baron Motorsport, is the team representative up there on the podium. First of all, national anthem, of course, before the trophies are handed out. Anthem fades out. Alessio Rovera stands by then. The trophy presentation's about to get underway by our Ferrari official GT driver, Alessio Rovera. Makes the trophy presentation of Willem van der Vorm for P3. Next up, of course, is going to be Alexander Nussbaumer that will receive the trophy that signifies his P2 finish. 2 P2s he's had this weekend, and it's 2 P1s as well to go to this Austrian driver, and that's Ernst Kirchmeier on the top step of the podium. Well done, Ernst. Franz Engster there offering his congratulations, of course. His team supporting Alexander Nussbaumer. All drivers together on the top step of the podium then. And here are the cars that put them there. For Scuderia Monte Carlo, Willem van der Vorm, P3. For Gomes Scuderia GT, Alexander Nussbaumer, it's P2. And for the second time this weekend, it's P1. Doesn't get any better than that for the Baron Motorsport driver, Ernst Kirchmeier. Trophies having been presented, it's time to look at the Drivers' Championship points. Axel Sardigan now on 81 points. He's still got a very healthy lead of 37 points, but von Skeltermeyer is coming up the order, look, P2 on 44 points. Manuela Gostner losing out by 1 point, so she drops down a place in the chart. And Willem van der Vorm stays P3 equal with Manuela Gostner for Drivers' Championship points. Of course, from here we head into a very long track. It'll be Le Mans next for the Coppa Shell drivers. What a race that is going to be in support of the 24-hour race at the Le Mans circuit, the Circuit de la Sarthe. Next up, we have our Coppa Shell&AM podium, where we will be seeing Martinus Richter, Tommy Lindroth and Giuseppe Romelli. Here comes Giuseppe Romelli. A regular podium placer is Giuseppe, very, very quick driver. He moves up one step. Here comes Tommy Lindroth, P2. And Martinus Richter on the top step of the podium.
National anthem.
Here comes the national anthem now. Applausi, applausi. That's Italian for make some noise. Right. Trophy presentations. Alessio Rovera, once again, the Ferrari official GT driver, who will make the trophy presentation, first of all, to Giuseppe Romelli for taking P3. Tommy Lindroth, what a successful weekend he's had. He adds a P2 trophy to his collection for this weekend. Well done, Tommy. And you just knew that was coming and taking P1. Congratulations to Martinus Richter. And the Mertel Motorsport team, of course, receiving a trophy as well. What a great job they have done with Martinus Richter. Drivers all to get together on the podium then for the photographs. And well done to all. Here are the cars then that put them there. It's Giuseppe Romelli for Rosso Corse Berlin Racing taking P3. It's Tommy Lindroth making me laugh. Taking P2. He was the man that's making me laugh. Tommy Lindroth for Barron Motorsport. And then, what a weekend for Martinus Richter then on the top step of the podium in his all-yellow 111 car. Well done, Martinus Richter. Victorious for Mertel Motorsport. Drivers' Championship points then. Kirk Beervold still leading by 12 points over Motohiko Isasaki. Giuseppe Romelli, P3 in the Drivers' Championship points. The big mover, though, up to P5 in the points is Martinus Richter, having moved up 5 places. Championship challenge could be on before the end of the season. And, of course, the drivers have the Circuit de la Sarthe to look forward to next, the Le Mans circuit in France, when it is the next round between the 7th and 10th of June in support of the 24-hour race. It's not so much of a trek. It's around about 1,400 kilometers or so. Wouldn't want to walk it, but there we are. Thank you so much for watching the Ferrari Challenge Coppa Shell races. We'll see you in France next. From Nico and from myself, bye-bye for now.